Hello, friends. It's Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden, and I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle and Joy, and I've seen almost nothing.
And today we are going to be talking about Clue, the movie Clue, which is one of my favorite sort of standard comedies. Whenever friends are like, what's your favorite comedy? Inevitably, it's almost always a Muppet movie or one of like the 10 they have, or Clue.
Nice.
I love Clue to bits. Clue came out in 1985. It was directed by Jonathan Lynn, written by, well, story is by John Landis and Jonathan Lynn. The screenplay is by Jonathan Lynn, and definitely based on that wonderful board game Clue, which came out in 1949, and the movie is based in 1954. And it has an all-star cast. I'm not going to list them all.
No, we'll discuss them in the course of conversation. We'll just mention...
We certainly will, yes.
We will. It'll happen.
We certainly will.
I believe in us.
Their pseudonyms and their actor names.
I will probably just switch the two names around constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Because whoops.
I think that's valid. I think that's 100% the way to go about this movie. But yeah, it's one of my favorite staple comedies. It's got slapstick. It's got really good comedic timing. It has dry humor. It has like ridiculous over-the-wall like Looney Tunes humor. It has so much going on.
I love the Looney Tunes bits. And I love that there's...
Right?
You're right. There's Looney Tune bits, and then there's witty repartee, and everything in between.
I mean, my favorite thing will forever be, as we were talking about before we recorded this podcast, was, you know, just the amount of times that Tim Curry throws Michael McKean around the house. He trips him. He throws him in a chair. He picks him back up. He tosses him back away again. The slapstick is choice.
Or the joke with the poo on the bottom of Tim Curry's shoe.
Oh my God.
Like, why is this here?
What a great running joke. What it like one of those staples of like a good running joke where it's like it's relatable. Everyone has had this happen to them, and then inevitably everyone checks their own shoes because you feel like it's following you. Is it you? And like it just filters into everyone else in the house and all the guests that come. It's the funniest thing. And then they drop it because of course they don't want to overstay their welcome with.
Of course. In my headcanon, I think that it was dropped when it began raining. Because possibly Tim Curry stepped into a puddle and his shoe was actually cleaned
up a little bit. I would accept that. I would accept that theory. 100%.
Okay. What do we do? Do we roll through the characters and discuss them?
Do we roll through the characters?
Do we rank them? Do you have a favorite?
I mean, well, of course I have a favorite, Danielle. Well, actually, it's very hard to choose a favorite from all these people. What's funny is I sat here and I went, do I summarize the movie? And then I literally went, have you ever played Clue? Because it kind of feels like a game of Clue.
Yes.
Like it actually feels like a game of Clue.
Well, I mean, there is literally that moment where I'm going to keep saying Tim Curry, but really I guess I should say Wadsworth, the butler. There literally is that moment where Wadsworth says, well, who killed him, in what room, and with what weapon?
Which I'm pretty sure is directly from the commercial. Don't at me on that, but I'm pretty sure that was basically like the tagline of the game.
I mean, if it wasn't in the commercial, that is in fact how you play the game. So that was directly lifted from the game. I mean, obviously the names of the characters and the rooms and the weapons themselves. But I also liked how that envelope that Wadsworth opens after dinner looks like the little envelopes that come in the game and that you're supposed to use to hide all of the secrets at the end. Like, there were like fun little things sprinkled all throughout like that.
Yes. I think when he actually tries to tell everybody about what happened, I think he says something like, I know who the killer is, which is a thing I think you say when you're playing Clue.
Oh, yes. You're supposed to announce.
You're supposed to like announce your guess. Yeah, no, there was 100 little Clue and Cluedo things sprinkled throughout. The funny thing is we didn't know we were going to be watching Clue. We actually had another movie lined up, and I was like, no, you know what? Clue's a good time. Let's watch that. And I think, Danielle, you said you had only seen it like once when you were little.
Yes, once when I was in, I don't know, late elementary school, probably. So the whole thing completely went over my head. I didn't remember a single thing about it.
Didn't get any of the jokes?
Absolutely not. Like, I briefly remembered that Tim Curry was in it, and it about ended there.
Sure. No, fair. One of my favorite things about this movie is this tended to be on television a lot, because it is, like, fairly child safe. Like, there's not any nudity. There isn't a lot of, there's a couple of lewd things, which maybe we'll get to at some point, but lewd in that way that, like, if you have a small child, the small child isn't going to know what you're talking about. Right. And then maybe when they become an adult, they're like, oh, is that what he said?
Yes, exactly. Or, like, they'll know it's a little bit adult, but they won't know how adult it actually is.
Yes. Well, actually, okay, so speaking of that, I'm gonna tell our listeners the thing that I always say when we talk about this, and I'm sure I've told it to you 5 times already, so I apologize. Danielle has heard me say this before, but my favorite example of this is when I watched the movie Splash over and over again as a small child. I had to be under 5. But there was a mermaid. There was a mermaid in the movie, and I thought that was super cool. And now, come to think of it, I probably had a crush on both Tom Hanks and, oh my God, what's her name? Daryl Hannah.
You got there.
Yeah, so the movie starred Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah, and I had a crush on both of them. And that's how you know I knew I was bi at a very young age. I watched this movie, I cannot stress this enough, over and over and over again. It would stop, I would rewind, and I would watch it again. Like, I would watch it again on the same day. And it was, and I probably eventually got hyper-focused on something else, so I stopped watching that and went on to watch other things. I wouldn't watch this movie again until I was in my early 20s, I want to say, and my friends were like, oh, hey, who remembers Splash? We should watch Splash. And we, like, rented it from Blockbuster. And I sat there mortified about the jokes of how they were having sex all the way basically through New York City until they got to his apartment, and then in literally every single room in his apartment.
Oh my God.
And it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized what was happening when they were, like, making out and fading to black.
That's so interesting.
And the joke in the movie is she locks the door, which is the first time she's ever done that, to, like, get rid of her tail. And when he finally breaks the door in and sees her and she's fine, he's like, what happened? Are you okay? Like, what's wrong? And she goes, I was shy. And he goes, you were shy. In the cab, in the lobby, in the elevator, on the kitchen counter, all of them. You're telling me you're shy?
You were shy?
Exactly. And then she just goes, I was shy. And she leaves the room. But, like, that joke didn't drop for me. Like,
just
I could have quoted
right over your head.
Completely. I could have quoted you the joke entirely out of context. I had no basis of what I would have been talking about. But it wasn't until I saw the movie again that I was like, oh.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know what joke that would have been in this movie. I don't want to take us too off base to characters. You know what? We'll circle back around to the characters because we definitely have to talk about them. But I guess the joke about what kind of party it was, possibly. I mean, if I were a young child and I were watching this movie, I would just be like, oh, adults kissing. And I wouldn't have thought anything beyond that. You know?
Right.
And so the joke where he's talking about this is America, it's a free country, and I didn't know it was that free, would certainly not have landed.
And all the communist jokes. I would not have gotten
communist jokes,
as a
all
child.
Of that. Mm-hmm.
Like
sure.
the dramatic silence before Wadsworth says, she knew socialists Like I wouldn't, I would never have caught that as a small child. I'm sure I didn't. I'm sure I had to wait until I was an adult to actually understand that one. But yeah, this movie in general has a bunch of jokes that are just like, it's got the talkie jokes where it's like, Mr. Body's body, it's gone. The 1 + 2 + 1 + 1, like the math, which is one of my favorite jokes in the whole thing.
My notes just say math, all the math, in caps for that section.
Yes, longtime listeners will know Danielle is not a fan of math.
Not a fan of math, especially really speedy math.
Oh,
give me a logic
math
problem that I can take my time with any day. But if you're going to throw numbers at me, I am, in fact, going to hear white noise.
I mean, my favorite part about that is when Scarlett is just like, that's not 6. And he literally counts on his fingers, 1 + 2 + 2 + 1. Also, I use that
doing
joke.
it along with them.
I know, right? I know. 1 + 2 + 1 + 1, not 1 + 1 + 2 + 1.
I mean,
1 + 2 + shut up!
I was telling Joy before this that I actually wrote down one of the back and forths between Mrs. White and Wadsworth, I think is the one she's having the back and forth with, where Wadsworth is talking about what she's being blackmailed for. And he goes, oh, this was your second husband. Your first husband also disappeared. And then just in that perfect deadpan. But that was his job. He was an illusionist.
Yes.
But he never reappeared.
But he never reappeared.
He wasn't a very good illusionist. Mrs. White. I love her. I love Mrs.
White too. She is, if I am like, back against the wall, I have to choose a favorite, it's going to be Mrs. White every time. Because she's so, well, not to, compare it to other, first of all, played by Madeline Kahn. So, like, you're already top tier female comedian woman at, like, ever. But, like, not to compare too much, but, like, a more recent TV show which has some very similar comedy to something like this would be, like, Schitt's Creek and Moira. Like, these characters are, like, very similar in my brain. Like, they would have been
every
friends.
Time she's, every time she's on screen, it's like your focus is drawn to her because she's so wacky and everything she does is so weird, but so kind of understated weirdly. Except for the moments where she really is front and center and the scene is meant to focus on her.
Yes. And then she goes all out. She goes all out every time. Every time. My favorite is my favorite is the flames line. Flames on the side of my face. Because I don't know, I also have a lot of rage. I am also a tiny woman with a lot of rage, and I occasionally I know this feel, as the children say. But, like, one of my other, like, weird moments for her is when Green, like, shouts at Wadsworth to, like, stop that! He shuts off the light or something, and he's like, you have to stop doing that! And he, like, goes over to Mrs. White, and is like, I hate it when he does that. And Mrs. White just goes, ah! She just
funny little
makes this
scream.
wail.
When Wadsworth is trying to pull her up the stairs and she fully just falls flat on her face and he just keeps going.
She just drops. She drops like a sack of potatoes.
I want to know how much of this was planned and how much of this was improv, and everyone in the cast was just perfectly bouncing off of each other and playing off of each other. I want to know. I have to believe that was improv.
I have to believe that a lot of it was improv, or a lot of it was figured out on the set, because I actually didn't realize until doing the very minor research for this episode, but, like, I didn't realize that the screenplay writer was also the director. So I'm sure there was a lot of, like, changing stuff on set, where
that makes a lot of sense.
Maybe an actor had a suggestion and then they just, went with it. I can totally see that happening. I think Tim Curry would talk about his experience on Clue later and just be like, it was just such a blast. And it's you can just tell these people are having so much fun. And almost everybody is in the same scene the entire movie.
When they're constantly running from place to place and crashing into each other. Oh, yeah, it's perfect.
The crashing into each other is still my favorite.
Yvette trying to walk up the stairs at the same time as Mr. Green.
Yes. Oh, my God. Yvette.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? We'll go up together.
Okay, so very closely tied. And I will say, obviously, Wadsworth / Tim Curry are fan favorites in this movie. How could you not love him? But when ranking the characters, my brain doesn't tend to include him. Like, I kind of put him in a separate bucket because it's like everyone else are the guests, and I feel like I need to rank the guests. And then whoever is the top guest is tied with Tim Curry.
I think that's a really good way to do it because his character is different than the rest of the characters. His character knows more than all of them, even up through the, the big reveals where he's like, I knew that there was a secret passage because this house belongs to a friend of mine, which like he doesn't reveal until it's almost the end of the film,
So he's got to be in a separate bucket. So putting him to the side briefly, I think Mrs. White is just very closely followed. Number one all times. Very closely followed or tied with Miss Scarlet.
Okay. Yeah. As your top, as you're tied for number one.
But then there's that face Mr. Green makes at the end, and I just love him for that one face.
For that one face. I know. Mr. Green, somehow manages to steal the show.
For the listeners who weren't listening in on our prior conversation, I'm referring to the faces that Mr. Green makes when Wadsworth is talking to the police officer and Mr. Green is standing behind the police officer. And it's a real, he knows that you know that I know kind of moment.
And the police officer is just like, I don't know why you guys are so jumpy. And he's just behind him like, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. I can't even give you any hand signals or anything because I don't even know what I just saw. And then the police officer turns around and it's such a big grin that he puts on.
I think his faces before that are almost like, just agree with everything he's saying. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. And then
just nod. Just keep nodding.
Oh, that big old grin. Oh, but Miss Scarlet, I just love the way she plays everyone in the room like a fiddle.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. She is that person who very, where Mrs. Peacock will be the type to be very obviously trying to get to know you and trying to talk to you and trying to understand you. It's Miss Scarlet that you have to watch out for because she will disarm you and you won't even see it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Miss Scarlet is pretty close to number one for me. I feel like her and Mrs. White are tied in my brain.
Yeah, see, they're right there.
Scarlet probably inches a little bit ahead just because she has, in my opinion, and this is entirely just my own taste, she, in my brain, has the more interesting character. Whereas Mrs. White is just may or may not have killed her husband and doesn't really have anything else going on right now.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. What has she been doing since she killed husband number 5? I mean, probably she's looking for husband number 6. I mean, that's what she's been doing.
How many husbands have you had? Mine or other women's? Yours, 5. Husband should be like Kleenex. Strong. Oh no, what is it? Soft, strong and disposable.
Disposable.
I love her to bits, but she's character-wise, purely character-wise, she's a little bit one note. She's not played that way. And, but how could she be played that way, being played by Madeline Kahn? But, I do think Miss Scarlet has a whole lot of other stuff going on in her brain. And at one point, her and Wadsworth are almost, tag teaming the reveals of everything. And she'll either... she'll ask you about, what the real truth is. Or she'll reveal her own reason for being blackmailed just off the cuff. And she'll be like, well, yeah, I 100% did mine. Do you want to know what it is? Because I'll tell you. And she's a capitalist.
She is. That was a great line for her.
Like all women of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
I also like that her character has quite a bit of agency.
Oh, yes. Yeah, probably of all the women we meet, like including Yvette and the cook, like probably of literally every woman in this movie, she is the one who feels like she at least knows her trajectory and knows where she's going and what she wants to do. I also, the actress who plays her, I watched her over and over again in, I believe it was a 1965 version of Cinderella, of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, where she played Cinderella. But what's funny is I never imagine her as a comedic actress. I usually imagine her as like a, you know, either a musical theater actor or like somebody who does more dramatic roles. But if you think about it, she's not really playing a comedic role in this. She's
she's not
playing someone quite dramatic. So it all comes back around.
all comes back around.
So then probably for me, oh man, I'm trying to literally remember all the characters. Probably for me, it would be Yvette, honestly.
Yvette who?
Yvette, the maid.
Wait, it would be Yvette who?
Under Scarlet and White.
Oh, I see. Number 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So not Mr. Green. Definitely Yvette.
I mean,
I have a soft spot for Mr. Green. I like that he's outside. He's so funny, but also so outside the action and just kind of reacting to everyone else perfectly for the entire movie.
I know. Well, okay, so because of The Last Solution,
yes.
I feel like when I was, for the last, like, if you think about The Last Solution as being true, right? And you watch the entire movie again, I get this weird sense of, like, almost like a Superman Clark Kent thing, where, like, Clark, like, the character of Kent is extremely, like, he trips over himself. He always fumbles with everything. He drops his glasses a lot. Like, you know, like, he's constantly befuddled, right?
And he fully takes off his glasses in the reveal, too.
He certainly does. So I think my young brain was like, well, he's just Superman. You know what I mean? And it wouldn't be until I got older and, like, also sat in my own queerness that I was like, I mean, I love that because he's the queer character and he is definitely removed from everyone else in that way that a lot of queer people are, where they're just kind of like, I'm just going to be on the outskirts. Like, one of my favorite moments is, like, when all of them come to the door and there's the cop and and the cop is just like, so did a motorist come by the house? And everyone's like, no. And he's like, yes.
Yes.
There seems to be some confusion. No. Yes. I mean, he's amazing. I don't know. He's probably tied for Yvette in my brain because I feel like Yvette. I feel like Yvette did a lot in this movie.
Depending on which solution you think is the right one, totally, yeah.
I mean, depending on that, she did half the murders. It's hard to know.
Exactly.
I think for me, she has she's with them for so long, and she's made the assumption, like everyone makes the assumption that she's a dumb French woman in a maid's outfit, and she's just there to look pretty. And, like, I just like the twist that, like, that's not even remotely who she is.
That's true.
Like, we never get to meet who she actually is because she literally dies as soon as the reveal happens.
That's so true. But she's been undercover in every single one of these people's lives and been an integral part of Body's plan. No, totally. I see what you're saying there.
Right? Like, she is also complicated, but we also never get to know how complicated.
Yes.
Other than insert call girl something, you know. What does it say that my, like, in my top 3 characters, 2 of them are women of the night?
I mean, this movie had a lot of women of the night, and they were amazing.
That's also true. That's also true.
Okay, so then those 3 to 4 are definitely top ranked. Tim Curry again, alongside everyone else at being excellent. I don't have any feelings about Colonel Mustard or Mrs. Peacock. I can take them or leave them. Which I feel a little bad about, but that's where they are. My absolute bottom of the barrel, Professor Plum, hate him. And that's nothing against Christopher Lloyd, right? That's the name of the actor?
Yes.
Nothing against him. Clearly he played the character well because I hated the character, and I'm pretty sure he was just such a slime ball.
I know. Oh no, he's gross.
He's gross.
Professor Plum is gross. There, and that's it. That's kind of all I have to say about him. He has a couple of the fun lines that I like. Definitely a super horn dog all over the place though, which was kind of nuts. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Wasn't into that.
Although I do, one of the other lines that I quote all the time is the Madeline Kahn where they're looking at those pictures and she's just like, how do you even get into a position like that? And he says, I'll show you. And he like tries to put her into the position on the couch and she goes, get off me.
Oh my God.
and me and my friend would occasionally just be like, get off me.
Yeah, but see, in that moment, you're quoting Mrs. White.
I know.
Not
but he
him.
Because he's such a slime ball. I do think the times that I watched this on cable, they cut some of his sliminess.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Like for that first, so I don't know if you caught it, but there's that very first grope, like before they enter the house.
I noted all of them. Because I was not here for it. My notes just say like, ugh, non-consensual groping every time it happens. And it happens, I don't know.
I mean, it was a good 5. It was a good 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
solid. That I can think of off the top of my head.
Some of them are peaks and some of them are gropes, which is why I ended up stopping counting.
Some of them are like legit flirtations, and I'm like, you can flirt. Flirting is fine. Just don't be gross about it.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, that very first grope, I don't think I remember seeing. Now, to be fair, I actually ended up watching this a lot on cable, so it's not that they cut stuff per se, but it's more like I would catch it when the beginning had already kind of happened.
Oh, okay, because I was going to ask, because I feel like that one was very on the nose, and then the other one that was blatantly terrible was the moment between Body and Yvette. Like, if I had guessed that anything was going to be cut, it was going to be the Body Yvette.
Yeah.
Moment, which I was also not here for.
I'm pretty sure that also got cut. I think they didn't cut it exactly, but they had like the voiceover and they didn't show you what he was doing. And they cut away to something else.
Yeah, because it's important for you to know that those two know each other.
Yes.
Minus the non-consensual stuff.
That they know each other in that way. Thanks.
I guess.
Movie.
Yeah. Thanks, movie.
Well, now
Thanks.
I know. So, like, you and I talked about this before we hopped onto the recording. So, I don't come down too hard on this movie for what it was. It was pretty tame. Again, they showed this on cable. They cut some of the somewhat seedier stuff. They didn't cut everything that was unfortunate, but it was also 1985, and it's about 1954.
So, yeah, you just have to give it a little bit of, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
Leeway? Kind of.
Leeway. Or maybe just, like, keep that little Post-it note on your brain as you're watching the movie. Because when a movie is made in 1985 to mimic 1954, it's going to have off-color humor in it.
It's going to have off-color.
There was that.
And I don't think it took away from the movie at all, but it definitely, like, there were at least at minimum 2 gay jokes. One of them I thought was actually funny, and the other one was homophobic.
Right. And the one at the very end was fully homophobic. But I also didn't love that moment where Mr. Green stands up and comes out, and then Professor Plum just, like, immediately gets up and off the couch. I was like, oh.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Professor Plum is kind of a slimeball character, so I was like,
I know. The gay joke that I enjoy is where Yvette is like, but who will protect me? Who will keep me safe? And, like, 2 of the men in the room are like, I'll do it. And he's like, never mind. I'm not
No,
interested.
thanks. That's not for me.
No, thanks. Yes, I think he does actually say no thank you, doesn't he? He says no thank you.
I can't remember precisely what he says, but
And then they get
that was a
paired
great
together,
moment.
which I thought was hilarious. And I was just
I'm
like,
so
of course you
glad
got
they
paired
got
together.
paired together. I'm very happy about it.
I was very happy that Mrs. White and Wadsworth got paired together. I was just like, oh no. To circle back around real quick, I enjoy the Colonel Mustard is there for like, if it's 1954 and we're talking about Washington, you have to talk about like government and like the war machine that was the government of the time. And I like that he is there. And I like that Mrs. Peacock, as like the wife of a senator, a corrupt senator,
100%.
like that makes sense to me. But really, I felt like their characters were just there to fill like a plot hole because they're the ones who are the most connected to Washington, with the possible exception of like Professor Plum, who works for WHO, which has become a part of the zeitgeist of 2021. And I was like, wow,
ridiculous.
WHO
Well, okay. Yes, I agree with you. I'm not saying, like, excise them from the movie. I'm just saying, like, they're not my favorite characters. But, you know,
Totally
that's because
fair.
there are so many more colorful ones.
Sure.
The fact that what he did for the WHO, when he's lying, I guess, because he was lying, ? He says it's family planning.
I know.
Listeners, you can't tell, but I'm just covering my eyes a little
Just
bit.
hiding my face. Hiding my face so I do not have to see.
Just a little visual joke for the podcast, you know. Those just
That wonderful visual humor. This audio medium with this visual humor.
Okay, now speaking of, we already discussed the non-consensual stuff. We don't love it. There's also the couple of jokes they make about food
Yeah.
that I wasn't really here for.
And this, like, inevitably circles around to a thing we've talked about before, which is like,
If you've listened to all of our Almost Human episodes,
yeah,
and only then.
Basically, you get to circle. If you've listened to our Almost Human episodes, we got a little bit of a circle back around to like Asian cuisine. How gross.
Yes, and the thing is, they actually make it a through line in the movie because they mention, first of all, the dish shows up at the beginning of the movie, and it's just this kind of icky looking white mush. Honestly, it kind of looks like very saucy Alfredo that has maybe cauliflower in it. Like, it looks like cauliflower. And when I was watching it, I was like, what's that? Like, what's going on over there? And it's revealed at the end of the movie that those are monkey brains, which Wadsworth claims are this delicious Cantonese dish. And then Mr. Green, of course, immediately turns and goes, that's what we ate, and pretends, goes to throw up. They do that twice. It ends up being, quote, being, quote, relevant because that's how we know that the cook was actually Mrs. Peacock's cook, and she spent some time somewhere in Asia, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't remember. I will also say, though, so they do that twice in the movie. The soup they choose to have them eat is shark fin soup.
Yes.
And they cast an Asian lady as the cook.
Okay, I actually didn't connect those dots.
So all of those little dots made me just, like cock an eyebrow just a few times throughout the movie. And also justice for Asian cook, because she gets stabbed in the back and then her dead body is just dragged around for the rest of the movie. I was like, come on. She rings a gong to call them into dinner. Like, all of it. All of it.
Oh my God. Okay, so here's the thing, is I hadn't even, this woman is barely on the screen for like 2 seconds. She has one line, I think, in the whole movie, maybe 2.
Yeah.
But like the one I remember is like, dinner will be ready at 7:30. And then like, that's it. You hardly see her face. And she's like this heavyset woman who, again, we barely see at all. I never even clocked that she was Asian. Never even clocked it because I barely saw her. And also the movie is like throwing so many distractions at me. I like missed it completely. I literally only after you said it, like in our conversation, I was like, oh, is she Asian? It didn't even...
But of course, the minute she showed up on screen, my brain went ding, ding, ding. Keep an eye on this person, see how they treat this character.
I mean...
So anyway...
Oh, no, and she was Japanese to boot.
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait. No, I'm sorry. I am wrong. She's Hawaiian.
Oh, I mean, so...
Well, I know.
Yeah. We all understand what that ellipsis was for. We're like, so, ... Yeah.
I know. But I still don't want to be that way where it's just like,
No, I know. I hear you.
She comes from Hawaii. She comes from Hawaii. She actually recently passed away last year. That's sad.
Oh.
I know.
Okay. Before we transition over to talking about the end of this movie, without ever discussing the beginning of it, I mean, we can quickly summarize before we talk about the end, which will be kind of funny.
Well, I mean, the plot is largely, I was about to say largely fabricated, but aren't all films?
Aren't they all?
Aren't they all? But like the plot that you get in the film is not the quote unquote plot that you get from the board game. And in the film, it's a bunch of strangers who are called to a house because they are being blackmailed. And initially, it is to unmask everyone, release all their secrets into the air, and get the blackmailer to go to jail. This plan goes terribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, then hijinks ensue.
Yes. No, that's it. Hijinks ensue.
That's the movie.
That's the movie. You end up with a total of, was it 6 bodies by the end of it? 6 dead people murdered in pretty much cold blood. Like, so many of them. Like, the poor... Justice for the singing telegram girl also. Because,
know.
She probably couldn't even see the face of the person who shot her. Like...
I liked her. Well, so the first few people who die, so the cook first, then body... And then, well, the cook and then body, I would say, don't happen in super quick succession. But then the rest of the movie goes on. And then the other 4, the motorist, Yvette, the police officer, and the telegram girl, all happen within, 10 minutes of each other.
Oh, man, yeah. They go so fast. It's what's funny is, like, this movie is really cool in that it spends the last 29, 30 minutes doing the whole... This is how it happened, and this is how they did it, and this is, the whole thing. And this is who I think did it, and how they did it, and blah, blah, blah.
And that frenetic energy keeps it interesting, even though... Because if you had just told me they spend 29 minutes explaining what happened in this movie, I'd be like, ugh. But it's not at all that way.
It is not at all that way. I promise it's entertaining. And honestly, like, I know we forgot to say this in the beginning, but I definitely recommend this movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really good feel-good comedy. It's good for the kids. There's definitely stuff that's going to go over their heads, but that's fine. It's funny enough, I think, that kids will, like, find it funny. And the stuff that goes over their head is just gone. So
Right. And, there's, like, moments where, for example, 2 characters are making out with dead bodies, which are not great, so...
I don't know, man.
Perhaps?
Most little kids I know would probably be like, that's pretty funny. Either that or you explain that they're just actors. Just gonna put that one out there.
Okay. Wait, so of the 3 endings, and let me just, in case anyone who's listening hasn't seen the movie in a while but also really likes the movie, the 3 endings, the first of the 3 endings is the one where it's Miss Scarlet. The second of the 3 endings is the one where it's Mrs. Peacock. And the third one is the one where it's the, Murder on the Orient Express. Everyone did it. Also, the butler, because the butler always did it. And then Green is the secret FBI agent.
Yes.
So just, those are the 3. Joy, which was your favorite?
I think I am going to rank them. I was debating if I was going to rank them or not, but I think I am firmly...
Start with the least favorite.
Yes, okay, so
so that we can end on a good note.
My least favorite is number 2. My least favorite is definitely number 2. I think Miss Peacock, like, is an interesting choice for, like, the whodunit, because she spent the entire movie kind of sniveling into it, you know,
That's
and like
true.
being very nervous and sort of scatterbrained. And like when this
really
happened,
was like very obviously not with them in the kitchen though, because she had full on fainted on the couch. So like, yes, she had to be one of the possible suspects.
Yes. I think, oh man, but I love it so much. Okay, so both of the other endings have.
Oh wait,
what was your number 3?
The other endings.
What was your number?
That was also my number 3. I think possibly fueled by the fact that Mrs. Peacock is not even anywhere near my top favorite character.
Sure.
So I just feel like it's not a very exciting ending. Probably the only thing I do like about it is when they all sing for She's a Jolly Good Fellow.
I mean,
because speaking of excellent Mrs. White unit moments, that's a great Mrs. White moment.
It is. I actually, while I was watching it, I made the joke that like Madeline Kahn is incapable of not harmonizing and or doing a round during any sing-along ever. Madeline Kahn is just like, I got it. I'm gonna carry the ending. So yeah, that's also my number 3. Yeah, it's tough for me for the other two. I feel like actually, yeah, I think here's where you and I will probably disagree. I think I'm going to have to put Miss Scarlet, the first one, as my number 2. And here's why.
Okay. Here's why. Can't wait.
Because I think it was a lot for her to do as one person. Mm-hmm. And I prefer to think of her as the kind of person who is like conniving but doesn't always get her hands dirty. And I don't know that her being the person to kill, like, what was it, 4 people?
4 people.
4 out of 6 people felt a little not believable. However, it is one of my favorite, it is my favorite as far as jokes go endings, because I will forever quote the 1 + 2 + 1 + 1 forever.
Right.
Eternally.
I mean, we quoted all of the jokes in this ending already in this podcast episode. We did the math one, we did the communism one, we did the capitalist one. Like, those are the best jokes.
That's it. That's it. And I also, but I like, the reasons I like it more than the last one I mentioned is because it does make sense for her character. And it also makes sense that she would continue to blackmail them for their secrets. That makes 100% sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And I like that she has this kind of nefarious side to her telephone and hotel company where she's actually just gathering secrets and then making money off of it. I love that.
Yes.
Love that for her.
She's a capitalist.
She's a capitalist. Okay. You know what? Yeah, because that was probably my number. That one's probably my number 1 because it is the most fun.
No, very
because
true.
It's the most fun. And I'm not, you're absolutely right. I think the third ending, where everyone killed one person who is meaningful to them, is the one that makes the most sense. I think the reason I didn't like that is because it was just...
Well, it feels too easy, right? Like, doesn't it feel too easy that it's like...
It makes too much sense.
It's like if you put...
It makes too much sense.
If you put all these people in the room with people they don't like, and then, oops, those people ended up dead. Who done it?
And then
these people did it.
Everyone did it, and they each killed the person they... Yeah, I was like, oh, wow.
Although my favorite kill in that one is the Professor Plum, where he's like, wait, then who did I kill? My butler.
Who did I kill? That was actually a fun twist. That was a fun twist. And I like that what they did with Green's character in that ending, because that made a lot of sense for Green.
Yes.
So I think 1 and 3 are very, 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 very close in my book.
Yes. And I mean, my favorite joke about the flames is in number 3. So I am biased. I am entirely biased on this one.
I do also really like Tim Curry's delivery each time he suggests that they stack the bodies in the cellar and leave one by one.
I know, he changes it a little bit, right? I
like that too. I like for all 3 of the endings, not once do they replay a scene exactly the same way. I
love that. I love that is also And I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a rumor, and I don't know if this is true or not. I didn't delve that far into the research to confirm. But when this was played in theaters, there was a rumor that they showed one of the endings in
At each theater?
Yeah. That they showed only certain endings. That it didn't play like what we watched. And I was like, but wait, are there lost endings then? Like, did you do all of them and did you only save 2? You know, like...
They couldn't do all of them. There's absolutely no way Professor Plum killed everyone.
I mean,
absolutely no way.
There's no way Green did either.
There's no way Green did.
My good boy. My very good boy, Green.
I don't really see Mrs. White killing everyone either. So...
It's fair.
I don't know.
They didn't really explain it.
Who else could it have been?
Who else was it? I mean,
I guess Mustard? Could Mustard have killed everyone? Like, whatever, I guess. But why?
But why would he, though? But yeah, that's the movie. I think we just about covered it from beginning to end.
We did. I think we did. 100%. Was there one more thing? It's going to be really hard. I mean, this is the Galaxy Quest problem.
I know.
How do I choose one more thing when there are literally 15 quotes that we haven't had a chance to say because that wouldn't, like, it's not fun for anyone for us to just roll through 15 quotes we really liked. But there are at least that many.
I mean, I think we covered just about everything. This is one of those movies where, like, the jokes just... You know, they roll out. The jokes just go and go and go. And, you know, you could sit there and just quote the entire movie. Like, someone could just sit there and read the script.
And, yeah, wait. Okay, here's what I'll say. I thought of one moment where I liked Professor Plum.
Okay.
A little bit.
Great.
Okay. Because I don't want to absolutely hate on Christopher Lloyd's character. And it's the moment where the police officer is walking through kind of the lobby of the entrance area of the mansion.
The foyer or whatever.
Whatever you want, I don't know. Fancy word.
And
Miss Scarlet dashes for one of the doors, and Professor Plum dashes for the other door, and they each close the door they dash in front of. So one of them dashes in front of the study, and one of them dashes in front of whatever other room. And then they do this real quick, like, act casual.
Yes. Yeah,
in front of their respective doors.
They definitely strike a pose, the two of them.
Or she's super striking a pose, and he's like sitting cross-armed with his pipe in his mouth in front of the door. There. I liked Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet in that moment being together, hiding the evidence.
They did a lot together in this movie. Like, I feel like the movie wanted us to ship them, and I was like, I don't know about that.
Not here for it.
Unsure. But yes, there you go. See, she didn't hate Professor Plum.
I didn't like the character, but I respect Christopher Lloyd and the way he played the character.
Yes, I concur. And as you said, he did his job. If you didn't like him, yep, that's it.
That's it. That's the one. Do you have one more thing?
I will never get over the way Tim Curry says no in this movie.
Wait, which time?
Because inevitably he'll be like, but there was one person who was not with us. Meow. And they'll be like, no. And he's like, meow. And it's like so completely nasal and like glorious. I love it so much. It's so very Tim Curry. I also appreciated the joke about the like, I'm the butler, sir. Yes, but what do you do? I buttle, sir. Yes, but what does that mean?
Well, and you know what? I will say that wide grin that Tim Curry is so good at doing, he uses very strategically in this movie. You know, it's not all over the place. It's always perfectly timed. Like, I think one of my favorite ones is when the police officer, they open the door for the police officer the first time, and then they shut the door in his face, and then they open it again, and everyone's smiling.
Yes.
And
so
then
good.
The other word, the word I wrote down for Tim Curry is when the police officer asks him, so can I use your phone now? And he just goes, certainly. While almost like dancing with the broom that he's holding.
I mean, Tim Curry, the real MVP of this whole movie.
Really, really. I mean, he carries those 29 minutes.
He definitely does. Bless that boy. He doesn't know when to stop. He just can't. He can't stop. He's running a mile a minute.
I feel like that was a positive note to end on. That's where we're ending this podcast episode.
That's
okay,
it.
Everyone.
We did it.
We did it. We would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, when you play Clue, which character do you always choose and why? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/BachPod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the fifth husbands in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.